recording now.
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
So I think that Jose is the first time that you joined the call, so you are welcome.
Hello, thanks. Yes, first time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I think that all of us have already joined the call at least once. That's nice. So yeah, there's only one item to the agenda that was brought by Federico. It's about the name of the module for the FPM package. I'm not sure what is the issue, so Federico, maybe if you can explain your point, and then we can discuss on it.
Oh yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I don't really want to bring that up as the first item. Maybe there's something more important we need to discuss. But I think this is related to the STF project, right? I started to kind of help out on this part where we're trying to ensure that all the packages loaded to an FPM registry do have unique names. And so it really seems like there's no consensus yet on what should be the kind of the strategy there. Like, should we have the users enforce all of this stuff? And so kind of, define rules for it. Like, for example, we've been discussing like prefixing module names with the package name, having some separators that, more or less uniquely help users describe their modules with the unique version. Or like, for example, I had initially thought that maybe a good idea would be that, let the users have complete freedom and then have FPM somehow, whenever there are collisions, bring up a wrapper module that's got a namespace or, that's got some prefixes, so that optionally, users that want to use packages that have collisions can avoid them by using the wrapped version of the module. I understand this is a much more engineered thing, so it needs a lot more work, a lot more modifications to FPM. So maybe that's not necessarily something that we want to have. But I think there are lots of options, and you should try to find some consensus of how to move this part of the work forward. Does anybody want to comment on this?
So I've been paying attention and kind of chiming in here and there on this issue. So I think technically the module name collisions are just a thing that cannot be resolved, because at link time those symbols have exactly the same mangled names. There's just no way of resolving that. So we kind of have to enforce some naming scheme at the FPM level. So I think you've put together the pull request for the naming scheme enforcement in FPM, which I think is a pretty good approximation of the way we ought to do it. But basically the idea is like every module in a package has to be prefixed with its name and a double underscore, right? So the double underscore seems unintuitive at first, but that helps prevent like a name collision where one package is the prefix of another one, kind of a thing.
Right.
I believe the registry itself could enforce basically just that flag to enforce that is set in the toml file. And then the registry itself enforces all of these things. That would be my expectation. Right. The only question I still have open is with the namespacing of the package names for the registry. Right. We've kind of got started under the assumption that we'll have like this namespacing scheme for organizing the registry, but I haven't quite worked out how will we utilize that in terms of like the module names. And so I'm not sure if we have to, or if we should, or we can just leave it open. So I'm open to more discussion on the idea.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I've been adding the namespaces to the manifest, meaning that you can now have it's another key for every dependency. So, you have standard lib and you can put dot namespace. the idea is once you get your dependencies from the registry, you can, we need a namespace, right? Because we don't want collisions, so we want to have namespaces as part of our registry. So every dependency every package has to be part of a namespace. So, and we can utilize this for every dependency, even if it's a path or a Git dependency. So we can put it in a namespace, and that could help, right? So, Sebastian, something to say?
I think there's one important distinction to make. We just talked about module namespacing. Now we're talking about package namespacing. And so the best is probably to just find a different word for it. I would recommend to just call it prefix for the packages, and we can call it namespace for the modules. So there's no confusion which namespace we're talking about. So the two aspects is, so you can have in FPM project, you can have modules, which with the new PR from Federico have to be in a namespace. So they have to be prefixed with the package name, separated by 2 underscores. However, you can still have 2 packages with the same name, which provide modules which don't overlap. And they could be published on the registry by 2 different users. And we want to avoid there's some kind of name squatting where somebody, once the registry goes online, just claims the name Blas and uploads something completely different. So there's this idea of having a prefix so we can able to have 2 modules, 2 packages of the same name. I don't know how much this overlaps, but I would say there are 2 different aspects.
Thanks. Milan, then. You're muted.
Sorry. So we're talking about namespacing now, and I want to discuss a little bit this single versus double underscore question. But if it's, I mean, to not jump out of the namespacing topic, I'm happy to wait. Or should I just go ahead?
I don't know, just go ahead.
All right. So in the latest pull request reviews, yeah, the double underscore thing stands out to me as quite awkward. I understand the need for it to further minimize the conflict surface area, but I wonder if this is a sort of a compromise thing where, okay, we want to minimize the chance of conflict as much as possible, and we want this naming to be as ergonomic. So in the double underscore scheme, basically we require a double underscore between a package name and a module name, and we disallow, so this may or may not be optional. I think it's to be discussed, but we can also, I think Federico, you currently require in the pull request that we also don't allow that underscores are being used between module names or in the package name, right? Because then that clashes with a requirement, or that allows for an additional conflict. And I wonder if we can ask, like, do we have to prevent any possible conflict? Or can we come up with sort of a middle ground solution that prevents most likely conflicts, still leaves some possibility for some rare conflicts? Like, let's consider the single underscore scenario, which is, I think, the most common scheme for naming things. Like, no matter how you name your modules and source files, like I see that people most often use underscores. Like, they don't omit underscores between words. They use underscores, and I've never seen a double underscore. file name. So such conflicts are possible, like, you know, the date time example that was put up. But I wonder if that's something that we can just be upfront, you know, having a nice ergonomic solution with a single underscore that is common to many people's writing habits and naming habits, but also to, you know, to caution, hey, look, if you run into conflict, you may either have to, you know, disable the enforcing in the FPM TOML, or, you know, rename your module. Because in the current scenario with the 2 underscores, I believe basically every current FPM package would need to, if they want to follow the convention, they would need to rename the source files. And, you know, if I'm thinking, you know, myself, if I would, you know, start doing this, I'm like, am I going to rename all my source file now, or am I just going to put this? Work. Or am I just going to put disable this enforcing in the FPM TOML? I'll deal with it later. But then that's kind of a slippery slope. Like once, if I don't do it now, it's unlikely I'm going to do it down the road. That's just me. So I think it's a give or take, and we just need to decide like where we want to be in that ergonomics versus preventing conflict space.
Yes. So can I comment on this, Milan? Well, you know, first of all, you know, thank you all. I think, you know, these are all very good comments, and, you know, more or less it's, you know, what I've been thinking about this whole time, right? So essentially there are kind of 2 sort of complementary, you know, ideas here. You know, one of them is to have the user have the most ease of use. So essentially, like, sort of don't bother them too much having, like, you know, all of these rules, you know, naming conventions and whatever, and try to have FPM do some more of the work. Like, for example, like you were mentioning, try to resolve some of the collisions or in a more or less automated way, or at least, you know, try to avoid them. Only in case there are collisions, maybe prompt the user, okay, you should use a namespace version of this module. And so in this case, you know, should the user have to provide these namespace versions, maybe only in a registry framework? This is pretty complicated. The other idea that, you know, we sort of were trying to, you know, find consensus on was, like you're saying, you know, having this kind of sort of unique separator, you know, whether that is a double underscore or, you know, whatever other, you know, character sequence, it's probably the easiest way, you know, to comply to. It's like, you know, everybody should comply to this rule. You know, to be honest, I also like, you know, using, you know, these underscores in my modules. Now, the problem is, like, you know, that's really the only character you can have in Fortran that's non-alphanumeric. So, like, you know, underscores are everywhere. And so I think we're going to end up having collisions, you know, more often than we expect if we allow the single underscore. But, you know, at the same time, there's no other characters. So the double underscore is the single, you know, closest possible different versions that we could use that's not so different from the single underscore. So I think it boils down to, you know, a design decision. Do we want to bother the users now rather than later, or later rather than now? I don't know.
Sebastian?
Maybe one idea would be to, so the question is, what do you want to achieve? So what want we to achieve with introducing this namespacing? We want to make, in my understanding, we want to make sure that there's no FPM packages which commit something like utilities as a module name, because everybody has it. So we want to make sure that if somebody has a utilities module, and I'm using like 5 packages which have utilities, they're never gonna clash. So, I mean, the point becomes more difficult if I'm using 2 different projects which both provide, let's say, a wrapper for BLAS. So because I have, I'm depending on 2 different projects, they both ship their own wrapper of BLAS, so they probably come with a same package name or a slightly different package name, and maybe with the same module names, but providing different wrappers. So these are the two scenarios I can see. So somebody like putting all the modules in a simple name, or that we have something which is very, very similar in purpose, and then ends up having the same name, even if there's some prefixing convention. So so there are two risks. So there are two things I see. So if we come up with a convention which feels artificial, we can end up in a situation as Milan described, like most people just won't implement it. So imagine I have a project which is in a stable version, and I'm going to change all the module names. I'm going to break the API for all my downstream users, which can be problematic depending on how many users this package has. On the other hand, we want to adopt something which also feels natural. So maybe one way to go would be to just check all the bunch of FPM packages we have. We have an FPM possibility to collect all the modules and see which module naming convention breaks the least. I don't know whether this makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any solution here that's going to just work for everybody and be the ideal solution, and we'll all agree to it. It's a matter of where do you want the conflicts and error reporting to occur? It's, do you want the package developers to be forced to, well, I mean, at this point, you know, anybody who's got a package, an existing package, is going to have to do something if they want to conform to whatever naming scheme, if we want to enforce it. So it's, do you want to burden the package developers now, or do you want to potentially burden the package developers later when users of their packages encounter name conflicts and get bug reports saying, I can't use these two packages together because they both have a utils module? And so it's, where is the least amount of conflict and strife going to come from? My inclination is that if the sooner we tell package maintainers, this is a convention that you will have to follow, the less work is going to happen, and the less strife will be caused by the overall community going, there's a handful of packages I want to use and I can't use them together until they all fix this problem that they have conflicting module names. So that's I think my 2 cents.
Yeah, Brad, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because, you know, I think we're forgetting that we're thinking in the perspective of an FPM registry. That is something that doesn't exist yet. So we should think of this, you know, prefixing, you know, convention as an extension to current FPM features. Like, for example, in the future, a registry will come available. This registry will enforce, like Min has mentioned that he's working on, unique package names, / you know, at least within the same namespace. So when you're going to package your own Fortran application using packages from the registry, you're sure 100% that you're going to use packages which have unique names. So you as a developer is like, you know, do you want to have your, you know, your FPM, local FPM project? You can do whatever you want. But if you want to contribute to the FPM registry, sort of a public, you know, repository of software, of Fortran software, then you should comply with these rules, and then you better adapt sooner rather than later, like you're mentioning. So I think in this perspective, probably, you know, the best thing around is to just, you know, enforce this prefixing rule somehow, like, you know, having package name, double underscore, you know, I understand it's ugly, but, you know, or, you know, any other options that we find an agreement upon. And probably it's not so bad because, you know, like mentioned, like, you know, if, you know, the registry has namespaces. So in the event that, for example, organization, whatever, has their own namespace in the registry, it's allowed to have a package that got the same name as another package from another namespace. The only constraint you're going to have is that you don't use two packages with the same name from two different namespaces. So that's, I think, odds of this, you know, thing are decently low. Probably not 0%. That's something you cannot enforce. But as long as we have these two rules, like namespaces in the packages, prefixing rules for the modules that are decently unique, I think we're 90% done. So maybe we should vote about, this double underscore versus other versions. I have no idea.
Has anybody talked about yet whether a package that enters a registry can be using packages that are not in the registry as a dependency? Or the registry would require you can only use dependencies, basically trusted dependencies from the registry. And if the latter, then prevention of conflicts could be resolved at the registry level. Meaning if you're just prototyping something, it's not in the registry, but you're using registry packages, I believe in that case, the registry, by its own rules, can guarantee that the packages that are in it will not cause conflicts between themselves. They may cause conflicts to your prototype package, but then it's on you to rename your module. This is a question, just thinking out loud.
So I don't think we have really discussed it quite at that level with that idea, but I think you're going to end up with a race probably, because the first package to upload a version with a module named utils will be the only package ever allowed to upload a module with the name utils, because you'll have to prevent name collisions of modules for the entire registry, for the entire set of all versions of all packages available on the registry. And I think at some point, trying to enforce that and check that as people upload more packages is just going to be an intractable problem. Like, the resources required to keep doing all of this checking will just grow unbounded. So I think you do want some strategy ahead of time to help avoid name collisions and not have to try and continuously do something to let people know.
Federico?
Yeah, I agree. And I had a very quick comment that, I invite our team or Min to kick in if they want. I think, we had been kind of sort of starting to discuss this. It looks like the registry database is not going to be able to parse any dependencies. So this type of checking needs to be done by FPM anyways. So like, for example, when you upload a package, there's going to be some checks that tell you, whether this package is suitable for the registry or not, or, you need to go back and, fix your modules and, and do that all over again until you pass all the checks.
I saw Jose's question, and I think the answer is no. So you can't, the chances of having a name collision between a Fortran module or symbol and something in C or C++ is very small because they have different name mangling schemes. And then there was another point. Ivan's point about external or link time dependencies. That's true, but hopefully they become less frequent as people are using the registry more. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think Milan, you asked whether whether packages should be standalone. So I feel like that would be a bit restrictive, because I think there might always be some system packages you'd like to depend upon, which will be brought into your FPM project as link time dependencies. And yeah, since those likely live, let's say, in the flat C namespace, there's not much you can do about them. But those will break at link time, so I guess they are simply out of scope for FPM.
Sebastian?
Talking about C, we already had this problem with the tree shaking in FPM. That if a project exports anything to C, it's going to live in the C namespace, which is also which is just flat. And if I have like a properly prefixed, probably namespace Fortran module which exports, let's say, a function get version in C, then this is probably going to run into problems with other projects which are going to link this in. So, the same issue kind of extends to everything which exports a bind C. I don't know whether we can reliably enforce a namespace there.
If I might just jump in, sorry, Federico. So in C, I think the convention is right that you prefix with your package name, and some C projects, let's say if they use autoconf or something, they often have a build option like with prefix or without prefix, and then there are preprocessor defines which rename essentially all of the public symbols. So yeah, that's always a problem you have in C. Yeah, that's it. So Federico, go on.
Yeah, no, these are very good comments. Kind of, in my thinking, we're trying to run before we can walk. But it's very good to think about all the possibilities. But I think maybe if we start enforcing some of these rules, then we can figure some of this stuff out down the road. Like, for example, I think I like this the C question, because people using FPM packages will want to have maybe bind routines to C, for example, to export them and to use them in C codes as well. Because we probably don't want, it's nice to have the FPM registry and whatever, but we probably don't want to have Fortran as a closed ecosystem, right? So maybe we should also find a way to kind of do those checks also on C bound routines, because that's going to happen. I think that's going to happen often. Once you start having this, a number of packages that people decently easily can start building useful stuff out, then probably you're going to see people use that more and more and have export libraries with C bindings. So probably we wanna start as early as possible with the easiest but with the most rules possible laid down as soon as
Ad?
Yeah, I think it comes down to where are we spending our efforts in terms of, and what are we getting in return in terms of I don't think we can solve all of the possible naming conflict problems, but what ones can we solve with a minimal amount of effort, and which ones are most likely to occur? I think the ones that are most likely to occur are at the module name level, things like I have a module named utils. That's invariably going to come up, and it's going to be obnoxious for a lot of users. How frequently is the situation going to come up where I have a bind C routine named utils? Where are these likely to occur, and how much effort would it take for us to try and enforce some rule, and how much effort would it take for package maintainers to comply with these rules, versus how likely are the things actually to occur, and how difficult would it be for users to try and work around something. My instinct is we take low-hanging fruit, like we'll just worry about module names and just enforce it at the registry level that your module names are prefixed with your package name. I think that solves 90% of our problems. And the others are, we can't solve the world's problems. But I don't know.
Yeah, I also think that modules, conflicts between module names are the ones which would be most frequent or the most problematic in some way. What I wanted to add was that at some point, so I've been using spec for some things. And so people who use spec to manage their software stacks, they have the option of essentially patching libraries. So there are facilities that if there is a library you depend upon, but maybe the developers are not maintaining it, or I don't know, it has some security problems. So there's always an option that you patch it. But yeah, that's then let's say adding feature creep to FPM, so it's a bigger decision.
Yeah, if I understand well, then it's really for the registry, not really for FPM, right? So if some rules need to be set, it should be done now before that we start something and then going back. So pop up. Who was first? Federico, maybe, or Sebastian?
Yeah, that's just very quick. I think, if we think about it incrementally, like, all of this, for example, having, very complicated libraries and packages, I think as long as FPM can provide us with a mechanism where you can build your own library, for example, you use uniquely namespaced, modules from the registry, for example, I think you're done. Then you can just link that library to any other more complicated packages in the ways that you want with, custom build systems, with whatever else. So I think probably a little bit of a nothing burger. And not nothing burger, but at least if we start thinking simple, probably this namespacing thing already covers like some 70 or 80% of the use cases.
Russian?
Could we, for the namespacing discussion, like take a couple of packages from different authors, where currently everybody has like their own namespacing rules, how they make sure that the package is done correctly, and just make an example how these names have to be changed to comply. So, I mean, this would make it easier for the discussion to see. Let's take the packages from John, which all start with m underscore something and have a single module. So that we figure out how are they going to be named with the new namespacing rule. Or let's take FPM itself. So how does it supposed to change? Then there's something like date time from Milan. I think it's datetime just datetime as a name, as a single file. And then we have JSON Fortran, for example, which also I think has underscore in the module name. And just go through the ecosystem, grab a couple of packages which use different conventions, and then just make the example how they would have to change. Personally, I would be in favor to a solution which requires the least packages to change. But if we need to come up with a solution which is consistent for everything, I mean, in the worst case, everybody has to change. And then it might take some time until everybody adopts. But if we do it now, it's okay. I would, but still, let's think about it. Let's make some examples and figure out a way which is least disruptive for our existing ecosystem.
Yeah, and going back to what was said a little bit ago was I think it is kind of the registry's job to hopefully try and prevent as many name collisions as it can, as is reasonable for it to expect to do. But you do still want to provide the tool that the developers are using to help them avoid it in the first place. So you want FPM at build time to say to the developers of the packages like, hey, this isn't following the convention that the registry is using to avoid name conflicts. You should do this, so that by the time they get to the point of, hey, I would like to publish my package on the registry, they're not surprised when they haven't followed the right convention.
Right, and let's not forget about another thing, like Sebastian, to your point. I think it's a very good observation. Like for example, I was trying to build FPM, with those naming convention rules, and actually TOML Fortran was the module that would break the rules because they were like while for example, like you were mentioning, like the modules that start with M, as long as the package has the same name as the major, the major public module in the API, I think there's no problem. Like, let's not forget that we can have modules have exactly the same name as the package. So if a package is specialized as just one thing, like potentially only one module, then I have my whatever package, and that's only got one public module, which is whatever. So in other words, like, ideally we would like to have that down the road. If you have a package that got several modules, the only public API you use most of the time is still through the major module that's got the same name as the package. That's maybe something we don't need to enforce, but maybe as a sort of style guide, we could suggest people to always have one unique module that's got the same name as a package as the major entry point.
Any comment on that?
I'll just say that's the convention that I try and follow and would suggest most people try and follow. But I like you said, I don't think we have to enforce it quite at that level.
Right. So, but it's another step forward towards reducing all potential cumbersome things. But yeah, totally agree. That's not necessary.
Regarding TOML Fortran, so let's say we we have an FPM dependency which breaks the convention. So how are we going to do this in a release? So we can't, from a practical point of view, we either have to go through all dependencies in FPM, change the convention, make the change in FPM, which of course requires then, once we change our mind, to go again through all the packages. I mean, and there are few, and we are controlling them, so it's kind of easy to do. But maybe it's a good observation to make one release in FPM where it's opt-in, so the key is supported in the manifest. We roll out this version. All the packages can configure this namespace, make sure they comply to it, and then we go back to FPM and then enforce it.
Yeah, and maybe this makes me think whether for example, enforcing this convention, is that necessary at the whole build level, or maybe we could fine-grain it at the dependency level, like you're mentioning. For example, my project's got 10 dependencies. 9 out of 10 already match this this constraint, but one does not. So maybe if my project is large enough, I want to deactivate this requirement only for the dependency that doesn't comply, so that if I'm of course careful enough, then I can still avoid collisions with the names, but have some of my packages, some of my dependencies not necessarily have to comply with this rule. For example, that would pop up if you have a project that uses some packages from the registry and others that do not.
on the command answer. Ivan, you proposed, you mentioned something on the preprocessor.
Preprocessor hack, which is kind of clever.
But does it work? I think if you need concatenation in macros, it's a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there might be something something extra needed because of the space, but you'd also need to add the module name on the end module clause.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna hit. It's a nice try, but I think it's not quite gonna work very well because of lots of edge cases. But I think what it comes down to is if we're going to enforce anything, there's at any point there's going to come a time where the entire Fortran ecosystem that has been built up around FPM at this point will have to shift altogether to follow whatever the rule is. So it's a matter of, do we want to do it sooner rather than later to minimize the effort in total, or do we want to come up with some plan to have a very gradual introduction of enforcing the rules so that people can slowly make the migration? And I'm not sure exactly what the correct answer is, because we do have a decently sized ecosystem at this point. So it's not going to be easy to get everybody to shift, but I don't know what the gradual shift looks like either.
I think gradual is good, but Brad, you said the whole ecosystem built around FPM may shift. I think a lot of packages have been following certain naming convention that was recommended by FPM, and I think there is an enforcing rule here, like it's kind of like a slider. Like we can find a rule that makes the least part of that FPM ecosystem have to shift what Sebastian mentioned. Yeah, so it's I think there is a middle ground there.
Yeah, I think there certainly is some middle ground, but I don't know exactly where it is or exactly what it looks like yet.
One thing we have to be careful if you do a gradual shift. We don't want to get maintainers frustrated because FPM is gradually breaking their package several times and they have to shift several times. So once we introduce something which is disruptive to the whole ecosystem, it should be done at once. And then, I don't know, think about your Fortran package. How many hits from your build system you're going to take before you are frustrated and not happy with the development of let's say CMake.
Yeah, I agree. Artif?
I think we do have a slight advantage with FPM over CMake, is that nobody's got hundreds or thousands of lines of custom CMake for any of the FPM packages. So
yeah, that's true. But like think about how often you're frustrated with your other build systems when they change something and now you have to redo it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. Artif, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I and Henil are working on the registry backend. So we would like to gather some feedback around the things that we are currently implementing. So the thing is, we are uploading the packages to the database and storing them in the database. So the thing is, we are currently confused whether we should allow the sudo admins or the admins to delete the package completely from the database, or just mark the package with a meta tag like is deprecated, whether that is true or false. Or if we are going the second way, like marking it with a flag, whether the package is deprecated or not, should we do for a particular version or should we do that for a package as a whole? So maybe it's related to the STF project that we are currently working on.
Sebastian, go ahead if you have an answer.
Yeah, so for deleting, I think we discussed this a bit. They're point for both cases. So we don't want to store every broken package was uploaded ever to the FPM registry. On the other hand, if somebody uploads a package which has a bug and decides, okay, now I don't want to fix this bug, I'm going to like just patch the release, move the Git tag, upload it again. And let's say this person doesn't do it like 3 seconds after the first upload, but like discovers a month later, says, oh, who's going to use this? And for somebody like, now something breaks. So there's a balance to find. I guess one thing we can do is let's have a look what other packages, package registries do. And most of them don't allow deleting or deleting only as a very drastic measure, which can be done by an admin in a way that you say, okay, this package violates some copyright, it has to be removed. So, but not like as a regular action a maintainer can take. On the other hand, if you look, I think this is what a Rust registry does. You can yank a package and then it's still there, but you can't, unless you explicitly depend on this version, use it. On the other hand, if you look at ecosystems like Conda, where you can freely delete and re-upload versions, you see, for example, that CondaForge implements a mechanism for preventing this, which means they have 2 namespaces, so 2 prefixes in which they upload to prevent, so one public and one private, to prevent that ever a package is deleted. So even if we like allow deleting, it's possible that people feel strong about this and can implement it themselves as their organization policy. I don't have a definite answer. I would recommend to just look around what other ecosystems do and how well it works for them. And then look what are big communities, how are they reacting to this?
Yes, absolutely. Like since I've been looking on the other package registries that are there in the market, I haven't seen like somebody straight away delete the package that is currently there, or maybe the author can even delete it. They can mark it as deprecated, as I've seen in some packages. But as you said, somebody might publish a broken package on the registry. So I think we might have had discussions regarding a thing called a role called sudo admin. So it can be the admin of whole of the registry that we are currently building, instead the admin of a particular namespace. So we can have a permission, we can give the permission to that admin of the entire registry to exactly to do the same thing, to delete the package if 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 it is doing something malicious, or if it is a broken package in the registry. But yes, anyways, we are like going to look on the other mechanisms, as you said.
I think you definitely want to lean very heavily towards avoiding any re-uploading of the same version. Like that, I think that is just a non-starter probably. The main thing is that like Fortran is very heavily invested in backwards compatibility and long-term stability. So we would lean very heavily towards not being able to delete packages, potentially marking them as unmaintained or deprecated or something like. But that I would lean towards that being as like a package-wide thing of like, I am not maintaining this anymore. So at least your users get some message in terms of like, well, I should at some point go update this thing. But it should, and there might be some exceptions, but it should be very, very judiciously used where a package has to be deleted. Like somebody uploaded something they weren't allowed to, their copyright or whatever. There should be some admin way of, okay, I have to delete this thing because we can't keep it. But there's already an implied deprecated in terms of like a version of a package, right? If there is a new version, the old one is deprecated, right? That's what it means to upload a new version of a package. So my opinion would be to be very careful about the situations where we allow anybody to delete a package.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we will have to design the rules in such a way so that we don't give the permission to delete a package to any of the admins in the namespaces, but we can think it we can think in a way to give the permission to deleting the package if in some hypothetical scenario there is a copyright situation or somebody uploads a spam package in the registry. We can give this permission to the admin of the entire registry, which of course can be one of the Fortran Lang admins, or we can decide on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Milan, you mentioned it in the
Yeah,
chat.
basically reiterating what others have said. I agree.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's almost 8 here. So is this enough information for the people working on the registry to move on? Or
Hi, Jeremy. I would like to add some points to it. Actually, we had been working on this and we had decided to make 5 rules for the login users of the registry. Like one as a sudo admin, second as the namespace admin, then the namespace maintainers, then package admins and package maintainers. So currently, actually, the things which we are considering are like, should we give the rights to the namespace maintainers or the package maintainers to modify all the packages, and like rights to modify a package and the parameters modifiable for each, like the version or the metadata or so. So actually we would like to have a discussion like who should have the rights to modify what part, like only the is deprecated or bring out a new version, or like changing the information. We consider that admin sudo admin should have all the rights, but regarding the namespace maintainers or namespace admin, we are still a bit confused regarding that.
Yeah, regarding rights, I don't know what specifically you mean with modifying metadata, but I agree with Milan that metadata for anything uploaded, which can be inferred from a package manifest, is immutable. So it can only be deleted, can't be modified. So there's no way to say, okay, let's change the version, let's change the name. So that's not something that's not gonna happen. I guess one thing that can be modified would be some additional metadata you can put on top, like this package is deprecated. And for I would say it's kind of like a tag or label, which we can attach. And those will probably go to the maintainer of the respective package. So somebody who can upload a package should also be able to attach a label to it. While this ultimate deletion right should go to the maintainer, to the sudo admin of the whole registry, so that there's no incremental patching of metadata. I think this would be harmful.
I agree. Artif, You want to add?
Yeah, regarding the roles, we so there is a maintainer of a namespace and there is an admin of a namespace. So what we were thinking is, so for example, if there is a datetime package and a maintainer wants to upload a new version of the namespace package. So we were considering whether the maintainer should directly publish the version, or there should be some kind of mechanism in which the namespace maintainer can publish a new version of the datetime package, and that request should be sent to the admin of that namespace, and that admin of the namespace can approve or deny it. So this can be uh, it can be verified by the namespace admin always. So there can be no chance that some maintainer creates a spam release or anything like that. But on the other hand, should we directly allow the maintainers to create a new version and make it public, or should we follow the earlier mechanism that I mentioned, or uh, what can be the better idea here?
So it sounds like you're proposing a staging area where a maintainer can upload a package and you then need elevated rights in the respective namespace to make it public.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
kind of like the idea to have the possibility as a maintainer to stage a package. And the question is, what is the status of the staging area? So if I stage my package, is the registry performing some checks on it before it gives me possibility, or does it allow me with some special settings in FPM, which gives basically access to my private staging area, which nobody can see, to like test it in real life? And once I move it to the public part of the registry, it becomes immutable, or is it already immutable in the staging area? So these are questions to be figured out. Questions more, do we need to figure those out now, or is it easy to start with a simple model and then add rules later as needed? If they, let's say, we have we have an organization which says, okay, we have very special requirements that only one person is allowed to make a certified public release, but other people can upload, and we want to have this feedback mechanism. I think for a start, it sounds more convenient to just be able to upload a package. Or would the case be that like everybody who signs in opens a namespace as automatic admin? And if you're admin, you can upload without having to confirm somewhere. And if you invite somebody to be a maintainer, so what rights does it give them where you don't where they can maintain a package for you, unless that you have to be active? So from a practical point of view, it sounds kind of strange to make somebody a maintainer of a package and then not allow them to publish a new version.
Yes, exactly. So we haven't thought in a way how that staging area will interact with SPM, but yes, we will have to give a thought to that as well. Uh, Regarding the point that you mentioned, like it's strange, we are inviting somebody to be a maintainer, and then we are not allowing them to upload a new version. That sounds perfect. Like we don't really want to do that. We are inviting them to be a maintainer of a package or a namespace, uh, just because we want them to contribute to the project and create a release. So I think yes, for the start we can give the permission to upload a new package, a new package, or upload a new version of a package to the maintainer. But then again, the differentiation between an admin and a maintainer of a namespace will be just that admin will have all the powers of a maintainer, uh, but instead of all the powers, he will have one more power that he will be able to invite other users to be the maintainers of that particular namespace. Am I like going on the same correct path here, or is there something we can give more to the admins which are not with the maintainers?
I think this sounds reasonable. I mean, as a package maintainer, you want to have all the tools to maintain your package, but you don't necessarily need, as an admin, you get the additional tools to make sure that you can manage your namespace, which is something you don't really need as a maintainer. You don't need as a maintainer to invite somebody new to a package. So this sounds like a reasonable distinction of privileges.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for your views on this. Like we were working on this on like a couple of weeks back, and we had several discussions coming around this. So we thought we should ask this in the meeting. Maybe Henel might have some more points to mention. I would like to pass on the mic to him.
Um, uh, Adding to it, we would also like to have the discussion like, should we allow the is deprecated for namespaces as well? Like something like maybe the namespace or the entire amount of packages are deprecated. So like that, or maybe shift of the entire namespace to another admin. We had been considering that, but we could not find a definite manner that we should allow to the admins also.
I think you'll want an approval mechanism for new namespaces. And I think the namespaces will want an approval mechanism for new packages. But I don't think you want an approval mechanism for new versions of a package, at least for maintainers of the packages. But I think there's a little bit of exploration to do in terms of exactly what are the permissions and actions available. So I think start with that kind of. I think you guys are on the right track, and we'll kind of see what issues or little exceptions come up, and we can make adjustments as we go.
Sure.
Yes, over time. Yeah, I don't think that we will find a solution today, but we have multiple solutions, multiple ideas, so that's good. And hopefully people working on that can move forward. And yeah, I guess that you will have other meetings to discuss that, and could be continuing Discord or on GitHub or whatever. So I propose that we close the meeting, and then we will see each other in 1 month. Good for everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
See y'all later.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye
Bye.
now.